Let's all clap it up. Clap it up for the Buffalo Bills, for their baby shit soft Sean McDermott, their head coach, who once again proved that he is a born loser. Philadelphia does not claim Sean McDermott. He is a born loser whose teams will every year find new ways to lose. And this year it was basically because of their MVP quarterback, Josh Allen, who didn't have just one, two, four turnovers in a massive game. Obviously, every playoff game is massive. But this is a team that just finds new ways to choke. If it's not the Chiefs, it'll be somebody else. And that is one of the reasons why entering the playoffs, I said even though the NFL, not just the AFC, but the NFL is wide open. Like there's no surefire team. There's no team where you go like, man, like they're a juggernaut. I'm worried about them. They are the favorite to go to the Super Bowl, because every team I felt like had a question mark. Like even the Patriots, I went, okay, are they young enough, or are they too young to really truly take that next step into the Super Bowl? Obviously they will, now that they're going to be playing Jarrett Stidham. But the Buffalo Bills should have been that team. The Buffalo Bills not having to face Lamar, not having to face Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs should have been that team that said, you know what, we've been here, we're tried, we're true, and they weren't. And here's my big problem, is the NFL and the media will absolutely praise Josh Allen every chance they get. Josh Allen this, Josh Allen that. He's the MVP. He's the golden boy. He does no wrong. And it's because Josh Allen gives really, really good interviews. He's eloquent. He's well-spoken. He seems to be truly a great guy. Like in the community, does a lot of charity work, has the movie star wife now who's hot. But like he is the NFL golden boy, because the fact is Patrick Mahomes has been very, very cringe. His supporting cast around him, whether it be his father, whether it be his brother, there's a lot of people that just don't like Patrick Mahomes. Combine all of that with Chris Collinsworth, who can't get enough of the guy. It's like a lot of the NFL, and I think the media as well, wanted to move on from Patrick Mahomes because it was clear that the Chiefs dynasty was no more. It had crumbled. The Eagles put an absolute dagger into it. So up steps Josh Allen, the MVP, the reigning best player in the league, who cannot get to the big game, let alone win one. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I know about this life. I know what it's like to watch a truly great quarterback choke under the pressure. When the lights are big, when the lights are the brightest, he just finds ways to not win. And the guy that I'm talking about is obviously Donovan McNabb, who is my favorite quarterback of all time with my favorite franchise. I grew up with McNabb. He is my childhood QB. Most of my childhood, when I think of football, is positive because of Donovan McNabb, okay? But with all of that said, Donovan's biggest problem was when the lights were the brightest, Donovan choked. And I watched the same thing happen with Josh Allen. Now all of a sudden I'm getting names confused. With Josh Allen. And yet the media will be so quick to go like, oh, I feel horrible for Josh Allen. Oh, he got up there in the post-game press conference and said all the right things. I feel terrible for him. No. We don't feel terrible for Josh Allen. We feel terrible for the Denver Broncos, who won that game and then lost their starting quarterback for the rest of the playoffs, and now they have to rely on Jarrett Stidham. That's who we feel bad for. We don't feel bad for the guy who was just chucking the ball all over the place, handing the ball left and right to the defense. We don't feel bad for him. But my big problem with all of this is how it equates to Jalen Hurts. Because while I am over the argument of whether or not Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback, we all know what's going to happen around August. August comes around and there's nothing to talk about in the world of sports because the only sport really going on is baseball. If your team isn't into it, you're shit out of luck. Even if your team is in the hunt, it's post-trade deadline and you're kind of just waiting for the playoffs to begin. Then you look over at the football media, who truly has nothing to talk about because even though there are games going on, it's games no one gives a fuck about because it is training camp. It is training camp, it is preseason. You're just at the finish line. You're at that last mile of the 26.2 trying to get to the regular season because then you'll actually have something to talk about. So what do? We compile these lists, these top 10 quarterback lists, and you're going to have Josh Allen top 3 minimum. And the debate is always going to be whether or not Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback. Now, I think along with most Eagles fans, are over whether or not he's a top 10 quarterback. We just don't care anymore. But the fact is, you're going to have media members arguing about this, and you're going to have opposing fans arguing about this. And in a way, I understand why opposing fan bases are so quick to get on Jalen Hurts. Because if you watch him from a 10-foot pole out, you see a quarterback that is nothing more than a game manager, and that is it, right? Like, he does just enough to win games. Nothing special about him. Okay, fine. If you watch him in a microscope, though, you see the greatness of Jalen Hurts. Now, this isn't to say that Jalen Hurts had a good year, because nobody on the Eagles offense had a good year last year, including Jalen Hurts. But I'll tell you this. What I've seen from Jalen Hurts is his ability to win games with his legs and with his arm. And that's one thing that people truly forget about Jalen Hurts, is that when you're making all these bullshit lists that really in the long run do not matter, because you're going to have a bunch of quarterbacks ranked above him that haven't won jack shit, you forget about the fact that if there's one thing that Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City Chiefs defense did in the last Super Bowl, was they were able to take away the biggest weapon for the Eagles last season, and that was Saquon Barkley. Now, they got gashed for 40 points. Can't ignore that. But hey, you can never take it away from them. They took out Saquon Barkley from the game. But what that meant was that Jalen Hurts had to win you the game with his arm, and he did that. And all these people that love shitting all over Jalen Hurts, and the same people that just love praising Josh Allen every chance they get, forget about the fact that Jalen Hurts literally won the biggest game of the year under the brightest of lights. He not only won the game with his arm, he was so efficient in that game that he sat for the last 4 minutes of it. The Eagles pulled their starters from the biggest game of the season. I guess they were waiting for next week's opponent, which wasn't going to happen. That's what I look for. Because I understand the argument by fans on the outside. But when you watch this guy, like I have, and like most Eagles fans have, what you see is a quarterback that is doing whatever the game gives him. Whatever the game is going to give him, that's what he's going to take. Because he's not a one-trick pony. He can kill you with his legs if he has to. He can air it out if he has to. But in the end, he's going to find a way to win. And maybe the most important fact to bring this all back is he does something that Josh Allen, well, I should say, he doesn't do something that Josh Allen did in the biggest game. He doesn't turn the ball over. You know, I couldn't get mad at him for the Chargers game when he had 4 or 5 or whatever it was, turnovers in that game, and the Eagles ended up losing. I couldn't really get mad at him because he never does it. Jalen Hurts ranked 24th in the NFL in turnovers amongst quarterbacks. Again, I'm not telling you he had a good year, but this is consistent. That is the one thing that you can look at from the offense that was consistent to previous seasons. Jalen Hurts not turning the ball over. And in the biggest games of the year, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to go, I'm not worried about him turning the ball over. Can you say the same thing about Josh Allen? So when everybody in the offseason gets so quick to just gush all over Josh Allen and rank all these quarterbacks ahead and all that, and the same people will love to shit on Jalen Hurts because they've made a career of it at this point. I'm looking at you, Chris Sims. Just remember the fact that I don't care where you rank them. I really don't, because I'm over the ranking thing. But you also need to recognize what he does well. He doesn't turn the ball over, and he can win games, and he has, and the biggest games, in a multitude of ways. That's what he does. So I understand why people are going to praise Josh Allen, and they will still rank him high and all that bullshit. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen hasn't won jack shit. This was a big year for Josh Allen because the AFC was his to take. And you know what he did? He shit himself on national television. And they lost that game. And you could sit there and you could cry and you could say why they lost the game and the controversial call. The guy had 4 turnovers. If he doesn't have 4 turnovers, they easily win that game and they move on, and they're not doing it, and they'll be sitting at home. So just remember, when you're quick to praise Josh Allen and then subsequently you shit all over Jalen Hurts, just remember, one guy has a Super Bowl. He also has a Super Bowl MVP. And the other guy has Haley Steinfeld. And I understand a lot of people would go like, I'd rather have Haley Steinfeld. Teach their own, okay? At times I might agree with you. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. You can leave comments if you want, if you disagree or you agree. I wanted to remind everybody. That's all. One guy shits himself on the big stage and the other doesn't. Albeit one guy was home this season because the offense was putrid. But I don't put that on Jalen Hurts. I put that on Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'll go Birds.
All right, Dave Dombrowski, this is your Phillies legacy. And I pray that you're on the right side of it. Because with Ranger Suarez signing a 5-year, $130 million deal with the Boston Red Sox, it is official. Dave Dombrowski, officially, now that Ranger Suarez is not a member of the Philadelphia Phillies, Dave Dombrowski officially picked Aaron Nola over Ranger Suarez. Now, if you followed me on this channel at all, if you followed me on social media, you are well aware of my feelings on Aaron Nola. If you haven't, let me refresh your memory. I fucking hated the contract. The moment it signed, everybody's hooting and hollering and all right. And I'm like, why are we giving that much money to a guy who is this with his ERA? Good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good. And you know what? His first year, correctly predicted, it was solid, right? It was like a 3.3, 3.4 ERA. It was solid. But historically speaking, it was supposed to be. And then last year we saw the bad. But it wasn't just bad last year. It was the worst. It was a 6.01 ERA at the tune of $26 million, which, by the way, is exactly what Ranger Suarez is getting. Now, I might be a little bit off with those numbers, but it's basically a similar deal. And when you factor in that both of these guys will be free agents in 5 years, it's going to come down to, did Dave Dombrowski choose correctly? Because he better have. Flat out, he better have. When you look at the numbers, Ranger Suarez has been a better pitcher than Aaron Nola. The Phillies fell in love with the fact that Aaron Nola was drafted by the Phillies. As if Ranger Suarez didn't sign, as like a 16-year-old amateur. But for whatever reason, they put more emphasis on the fact that he was a homegrown drafted guy. The fact that at one point in his career, back in 2018, he finished third in the Cy Young voting. Deservedly so, by the way. He was stellar. But they bought into this, like, we can't lose him. Oh my God, God forbid we lose Aaron Nola to the Braves. No. Take my left arm. Don't take Aaron Nola from me. So Dave Dombrowski handed him a ridiculous contract. That looks horrible now. Because going into spring training, we have no idea what we're getting. Now, I'm pretty sure that Aaron Nola will regain form because, historically speaking, as I said, that's what he does. It's every other year. Last year was the bad. This year will be the good. The year after will be the bad. It's inconsistent. Have I ever seen a pitcher live to give up a 3-run home run more than Aaron Nola? No, I haven't. Conversely speaking, have I ever seen a pitcher who just seems to have ice water in his veins like Ranger Suarez? Few and far between. I mean, the answer is yes, I have. But in a Phillies uniform, it's like the moment has never been big for Ranger Suarez. He just dials in. It's crazy. And when you're trying to win a World Series championship, you need guys like Ranger Suarez. You need guys who you can just give the ball to and go get it. Because you know that the moment won't be big enough for them. You know that they're not going to buy into that. That they don't realize how big the moment is. That they are just cool, calm, and collected. Now, with that said, Aaron Nola pitched pretty well in the playoffs in that one start that he had. But it wasn't like they didn't have to yank him from that start early to avoid what we had all grown accustomed to, which was the 3-run home run. So when you're looking at it, Dave Dombrowski chose his horse. His horse is Aaron Nola. His horse got a 2-year head start because 2 years ago, that's when Aaron Nola hit free agency, and the return on investment has been up and down. We don't know what Ranger Suarez is going to be. It's not like Ranger Suarez has not dealt with injury history. He has. And I think that probably played a factor into why the Phillies were reluctant to give him that much money. But when I look at it, I'd rather have a guy that struggles to get to 200 innings, but his ERA will be around 3.2, 3.3 consistently across the board. I'd rather have that guy than the guy that will give me 212 innings, but his ERA is going to be 4.6. And yeah, he's going to strike out a lot of batters. That's sexy, but he's also going to lead the league in home runs. When you look at one of the holes that the Phillies have, starting pitching is not necessarily one of them, but they have no depth there now. Because they're going into a season where they're going to have Zach Wheeler coming off of the thoracic outlet situation that he had and the blood clot. I think he'll regain form, but still, you don't know. You got Christopher Sanchez, who finished second in the Cy Young voting and looks like an absolute stud. And credit to Dave Dombrowski. If I'm going to rip him, I got to give him credit. He got ahead of Christopher Sanchez well before Christopher Sanchez established himself as a real ace in Major League Baseball. He signed him to an extension. Kudos on that front. Like, that was very Howie Roseman-esque. I got to give him credit for that. Jesus Luzardo, who is entering the last year of his deal. And then after that, you've got Taijuan Walker. You've got Andrew Painter. Like, I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, if anybody goes down with an injury, I'm sorry, and Aaron Nola. If anybody goes down with an injury, you don't have a ton of depth there. Because if there's one area that the Phillies have struggled to cultivate under this new regime in their prospect development, it has been starting pitching. They basically have Andrew Painter, and that is it. They traded Mick Abel. You know, Mick Abel could have been one of the guys this year, and I'm not criticizing that move. Like, I really liked that move. I didn't like trading Eduardo Tait, the 18-year-old catcher. Mick Abel was the most obvious choice to get traded because at the time, like, they didn't really need him. Like, he's major league ready. So, but with that comes the risk that if one of these guys goes down and Andrew Painter once again struggles at AAA, what do you do? Now, you can always go out there and you can get like a Walker Buehler. You can, sign somebody. You can plug and play. You can have like a bullpen game or whatnot. But I don't think necessarily you want to do that. And right now, as it currently stands, the Phillies' top prospect in terms of pitching is Andrew Painter. The second guy who is kind of major league ready-ish, like at least he's like close, is Gene Cabrera, and he will start the season off at AAA. But, he was an okay pitcher for AA Reading last year. He was okay. He was their workhorse. And, it's worth mentioning he pitched in a bandbox. But I don't look at Gene Cabrera as anything more than maybe a 5 in Major League Baseball. So when you're looking at the Phillies right now, the risk that they have run is letting one of the most consistent, very, very good pitchers walk for Aaron Nola. I hope to God that we can all laugh at this video. And Lord only knows, when I made the video last season about I am retiring from Aaron Nola starts, I don't enjoy watching him pitch, I don't want to watch it anymore, I am done, I am taking that day off. Lord only knows I was ripped, and I was hoping to God I wasn't right. Turns out I was right. Nobody enjoyed watching Aaron Nola pitch last year, and everybody always enjoys watching Ranger Suarez pitch. So Dave Dombrowski, good luck, my guy. Good luck. Because this has the chance to blow up in your fucking face and make you look like an absolute jackass. And I pray to God that's not the case, because it means that the Phillies are doing well. It's not like I wish, injury or shitty starts, against Ranger Suarez. Like, I love Ranger Suarez, and I will always love Ranger Suarez. Thank God he didn't go to the Mets. But I have a feeling that this is going to be, Ranger Suarez is going to well outperform Aaron Nola, and we are going to look and go, man, this rotation really could have used Ranger Suarez this year. And Aaron Nola might be having an okay year, but it's amazing. Both the deals, the 5 years remaining on each, they're both making about $26 million. Time will tell. Let me know what you guys think about Ranger Suarez signing with the Boston Red Sox. Is it a risk that you would have made? What did you think of the Aaron Nola contract when it was signed? How do you feel about it now? Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. I am going to go now. Go Phillies. Phillies fans don't want to hear this, but I truly believe the Phillies lucked out by having the Mets panic and hand Bo Bichette $42 million per season. There is no planet where Bo Bichette is worth $42 million. And I kind of brought this up on my initial Bo Bichette video where it was announced that the Phillies and Bo Bichette were going to have a team meeting. And I just didn't think the move made a ton of sense because, one, I didn't know how much he wanted. And you find out that he essentially asked for $200 million over 7 years, which was about $28.5 million per. The Mets come in and they're just like blank check. And of course, I don't blame him. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Opt out. So I'm only here for 3 years. Okay. Yeah, sign me up. But $28.5 million for 7 years, even that I would have been like, okay, he's probably around that number. 7 years is a lot. But what you're doing with Bo Bichette is banking on him putting it all together. Because when you look at his body of work, 2 years in a row, he leads Major League Baseball in hits, but that was like 4 years ago. And, 1 year he had 28 home runs, but last year he had 18. And 1 year he's stealing 25 bags, but last year he stole like 4. Now, his on-base percentage is always pretty solid, barring the previous year where he was injured and it was dreadful and his batting average dipped down. I just don't know if Bo Bichette ever puts it fully together. I think there's going to be a year or two thrown in there where Bo Bichette looks like the guy that the Phillies thought that they were going to get for $28.5 million. I don't envision a world where at any point Bo Bichette, you look at him and you go, there's a $40+ million player. The Mets absolutely panicked. They thought they were getting Kyle Tucker. The Dodgers swooped in and said, hey, we're the Dodgers. We'll sign you to an astronomical number. And the Mets were like, $42 million, Bo Bichette. We need something. And they knew they needed something. Their owner's tweeting out, let me know when you see smoke. And I tweeted back, well, we do see smoke, Chief. It's the dumpster fire of your team. Because the fact is, Bo Bichette does not replace the production that Pete Alonso left when he bolted for Baltimore. And I think that might be an addition by subtraction in terms of the clubhouse dynamic, but the on-field dynamic, Bo Bichette is not replacing that. They traded Brandon Nimmo, and what they got is a reclamation project in Marcus Semien. There's a lot of questions with the New York Mets. The strength of the New York Mets, though, is their pitching rotation. Jonah Tong and McLean are two really, really, really good young pitchers. And I think that's going to be a strength of their team, but I still don't view them as a deep, serious threat to the Phillies. Whereas the Phillies signing Bo Bichette to me was like, we kind of got to do something. And that's what the Mets were. They were like, we got to do something. We got to appease our fan base. So the Phillies striking out, pardon the pun, with Bo Bichette, I actually think will end up benefiting them in the long run because I didn't think it made much sense. He had never played third base a day in his life. You were going to move Alec Bohm for the sake of moving Alec Bohm because Alec Bohm at $10 million is a really good third baseman. You're going to be hard-pressed to find many third basemen that are making $10 million that are going to give you the production of Alec Bohm. I know the fan base doesn't want to hear that because he's been the whipping boy ever since he arrived in Philadelphia because he was drafted third overall. You expect lofty expectations with the third overall pick, and what you end up getting is a guy that is a doubles machine. He drives in 30+ doubles a year. He might hit 20, maybe if he runs into a few, 25 home runs if he's lucky, home runs a year in a bandbox. But he's improved on his defense. He's a cheap option. I think the problem is the Phillies routinely bat him fifth in the lineup, and nobody looks at him and says, oh, he's a 5-hole hitter, because he's not a 5-hole hitter. But what he is a proven Major League Baseball third baseman, which Bo Bichette is not. And it's not to say that Bo Bichette couldn't transition easily to third base. There's a chance that Bo Bichette ends up being a much better defensively and offensive player than Alec Bohm. What he is not is $32 million better than Alec Bohm, which is what, when you factor in $42 million for Bo Bichette, $10 million for Alec Bohm, he's not $32 million better. Factor in also that the Phillies' top hitting prospect, Egan Miller, is probably going to start the year in AAA and is on the cusp of making Major League Baseball. So when you look at Alec Bohm and you look at how many years of arbitration he has left, because it's pretty obvious the Phillies are not going to re-sign him to a long-term extension, they're probably going to move on. Look for the Phillies, and I said this before, for them to move Egan Miller to third base. Whereas if you sign Bo Bichette to a 7-year deal, you've got Bo Bichette for 7 years. You've got, I
think Trey Turner with like 10 years left on his deal. And then you've got Bryson Stott, who is arbitration eligible, who I guess you'd have to move to put Aiden Miller in unless you transition him to a corner outfield spot, which I don't think they've done. The problem is the optics of today, and I'm recording this on a Friday, are just not great for the Phillies. Because the Phillies, the past couple of years, have failed to have that juice signing. Last year, their big move was Jesus Luzardo, and that was a question mark coming into the year, and it ended up being great. Like, he ended up being a really, really good pitcher for them. But at the time, nobody was jumped and excited and exuberant about Jesus Luzardo because we had grown accustomed to the big signing. We had grown accustomed to the Trey Turners, the Castellanoses, the Schwarbers, the Harpers, those kind of guys. We'd grown accustomed to it. So when you trade for a guy and you bring him in and he's got some question marks, it's hard to get amped for that. And then they sprinkled in a bunch of budget signings like Max Kepler was thrown in there. Like that didn't get anybody pumped. And then you fast forward to this year's offseason and it's been much the same. And I made that video and I'll put it up in the corner there about have the Phillies just made a bunch of lateral moves. And I do think they have. Because the Phillies, a lot of people are looking at, they panicked. And as soon as they struck out on Bichette, they re-signed JT Realmuto. I don't think the two are really equated even with the timing because I do think that even if they had signed Bichette, they would have signed JT Realmuto. I don't think there's really a world where Bichette would have prohibited the Phillies from bringing back JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto and the Phillies were always destined to reunite. It was just a matter of years and money. The money, $15 million for 3 years, sign me in blood for JT Realmuto for 3 years at $15 million per. Because what he's going to give you defensively will make up for just about his entire paycheck. Offensively, I don't think he's nearly the player he once was, but that is a good contract. You're not tied in for more than 3 years. You can draft a catcher of the future if you want in the first round or the second round or whatever, because they don't have anything in the minors, unfortunately. But that is a good contract. You are not going to be sitting there lamenting the contract in 3 years, because in 3 years he's probably going to retire. But what I was worried about with JT was going to be like a 5-year deal. 3 years at $15 million, like absolutely. But again, it's not getting the fan base excited because you've had JT, you had Kyle Schwarber, and both those guys, I feel like for the most part, the fan base was just expecting the Phillies to bring them back no matter what, which they did, and kudos to them, I guess, for that. But there just hasn't been that signing. Maybe they're linked to Cody Bellinger, but even then, like, where does he fit in all of this? Because you've got Brandon Marsh in left field, who gives you a really good defensive left field, but Dave Dombrowski traded for that guy. He doesn't want to give him up. He's like cemented in Brandon Marsh because he doesn't want to admit defeat on that. And Brandon Marsh, to his credit, had a really good second half last year when he came back from the injury, but he's never going to be what they thought that they were getting when they traded for him. Cody Bellinger is a much better player. But when you look at the whole of their outfield, they have made a bunch of lateral moves. They did bring in Adalis Garcia, and he's not Nick Castellanos, but you could see him becoming Nick Castellanos in 1 year. Like, there's no given that he is this massive upgrade. By the way, Castellanos is still on the team. Their pitching rotation got worse because you let Ranger Suarez walk, and you still have Aaron Nola. Like, the Phillies didn't have a great day in terms of the optics, but I think in the long run they did have a good day. They locked in their catcher for 3 years. They didn't overpay for him, and they didn't give him too many years on the deal. And it still, I think, gives them a chance to win. I think Bichette's a really good player. I just don't think he's worth $42 million. And even at $28 million, I would have been like, I don't really know about that. That's steep. And what he doesn't do is block Aiden Miller coming up. There is no sure thing with prospects. And I can tell you that. I follow the minor league system to a fault. And I'm guilty of falling in love with prospects that don't pan out. But Aiden Miller looks like the real deal, and I know what does that mean? He's a 21-year-old at AA. But I would hate to sit there in a year and go, where the fuck does this guy play? And then you're scrambling, and you're like, can we put him in a corner outfield spot? This doesn't prohibit the Phillies from moving him to third base, which I think is going to be his future. So I get why Phillies fans are mad, and I get the optics of it, okay? your division rival ended up getting the guy that you wanted, and they vastly overpaid for it. But I'm telling you, I really think that when we look back at this, we're going to go, yeah, thank God. Because Alec Boehm, again, is a $10 million option at third base. You're not overpaying right there. And it doesn't block Aiden Miller, and they can always move Alec Boehm if Aiden Miller's ready next year. All right, let me know what you guys think, though, in the comment section. Hit thumbs up if you like this video. Smash the thumbs down button if you thought this video sucked. Subscribing's cool. I'm good to go.
I'm going to ask a simple question. Outside of the division, so I'm an Eagles fan. That means you've got the Commanders, the Giants, and the Cowboys. But outside of the division, or whoever you cheer for in the NFL, outside of your division rivals, are the San Francisco 49ers the most unlikable team in the NFL? Now, on the surface, San Francisco fans will say, oh, well, you're an Eagles fan. You're just bitter that, the Eagles ended up losing to the 49ers in the playoffs and blah, blah, blah. That's far from the reason why. I mean, I felt like this for a long time. And I guess, the timing isn't great on my, for me right now, being an Eagles fan. Let me just say that any Eagles fan that didn't see that playoff game going the way that it did wasn't paying attention all season. I was far from mad. I expected what I ended up getting in that playoff game. No, the reason why I pose this question is because if you're not familiar, the 49ers ended up going to Seattle and getting their ass beat, 41-6. And this was Trent Williams' post-game comments afterwards asking, was the Seattle Seahawks defense just simply too much for you guys?
Against this Seahawks defense, you got to face them twice every year, and it seems like they have your number right now.
I mean, ain't gonna take shit. I mean, we ain't got, we down to all the best tight end in the world, right? It's a lot of things that we're up against, not just Seattle. So, I mean, we split the game. They won one. I mean, during the season, we came down here with a healthy team and we won. I think that's what we can be. Obviously, when you're playing with guys that you signing out practice squads, guys that's, you taking off the street, I mean, you got to temper your expectations a little bit, So.
Okay, so here's why I bring it up. Do I have a dog in the fight right now for who wins the Super Bowl? No, I don't. I don't even have any betting interest in it at all. I don't have any futures bets online. So when the 49ers went to Seattle, it wasn't like I was pulling for one team or the other. But I don't really like the 49ers because if you had asked me before this game, I would have said this is a team that consistently makes excuse after excuse after excuse for why they don't ever win the big one. And I think back to 2023 when the 49ers came into Philadelphia for the NFC Championship game and the Eagles broke their quarterback. And then the Eagles proceeded to break their other quarterback. And it left Brock Purdy having to go in with one arm and really just hand the ball off in a game that at that point was well lopsided anyway. There was no way, there was no world where the 49ers were to come back. Even if they had a third-string quarterback, an emergency quarterback for that game, they weren't going to come back on the Eagles and end up winning. But post-game, instead of just owning up to the fact that they put a backup tight end on Hassan Reddick, who at that point had 20-something sacks, dumb move, that ended up getting their starting quarterback broken in that game. Instead of owning up to that mistake, it was, no, we got screwed because we didn't have a third-string quarterback. Again, what third-string quarterback was going to lead you to the promised land? There was no world where the defense of the 49ers was going to be able to stop the Eagles' offense, but even if they were able to, the game was so out of hand that no third-string quarterback was going to make that much of a difference. But again, 49ers, they make excuses. Okay, fine, it's one game, you're bitter, I get it. But then there's this game. And he's asked point blank, was the defense too much for you guys? Well, apparently the defense was, because you only scored 6 points. And Trent Williams comes out and he says, no. We weren't just battling the Seahawks. No, we were down the NFL's best tight end. Okay. I don't think he is. He's top 3 though. Okay. So let's just, for shits and giggles, let's just say he is the best tight end in football. Is George Kittle a 35-point difference maker? Is George Kittle going to make up 35 points with his ability to block and catch the ball? No. No, 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 and no. Which brings me back to my next question. Are they the most unlikable team? Because they can never just own up to the fact they're not good enough. The 49ers remind me of a hockey team that I used to play on that I no longer play on, and I got sick of it. Because even though there were deficiencies on this hockey team, it was either we won or we got screwed. We got screwed by the refs. We got screwed by the other team having ringers. Like, you name it. It was never just, hey, we're not good enough. No. Can't admit that. It was always a caveat. It was always an excuse. And that's what you get from the 49ers. They come out with the boom box and they're all hype, and it's like they're trying to like put on this show, this act, only to end up falling short. Again, in an embarrassing fashion, where the entire NFL is just laughing at them. You came out to that much pomp and circumstance and scored 6 points. Did I think the 49ers were going to end up winning the Super Bowl? No, but I did think that they were the hot team heading into the playoffs, and they possibly could make some noise. But going into Seattle is a very, very difficult thing to do. Everybody knows that. Their home field advantage is real. They designed their stadium to trap sound in, so it makes it very difficult for an opposing team to come into. Combine that with the fact that Seattle's really good. They're 14-2. They're the number one seed. I'm not surprised at how the outcome went. It's the fact that you just can't look yourself in the mirror. And the delusion of the San Francisco 49ers and their fan base and their media, for that matter. You have Boom Boom and Squiggy on 95.7 The Game, who just, it's basically the same thing. Like, you just can't admit, we're not good enough. I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm telling you, if you look at all my videos leading into the playoffs, and if you look at my lives of the in-games, I was sitting there going, this team ain't good enough. They can barely, score 20 points in a game. They're not good enough. They're not going to end up, this is not the year. They have deficiencies, mainly on the offensive leadership, mainly in the coaching department. Like, you were just able to look in the mirror and go, okay, like, this isn't the Eagles getting screwed. This isn't a bad call here or there. No, it's the Eagles played like the Eagles were supposed to. The Eagles played like they had all season long. They underperformed, and they lost. And you know what would have happened if the Eagles ended up squeaking out a win and going to Seattle? Pretty damn similar to what happened to the 49ers. The difference, however, is I do think that there would have been an inward moment where you were able to look inside, and the players and the coaches would have been like, you know what? This was an issue all year long. It is what it is. We'll regroup. And I think that's what you were supposed to do. I'm not asking you to praise the other team and shit on your own team, but to come out and say, oh, well, we were battling this and that. It's the same story with these guys every single year. Am I looking forward to the championship games? Not really. LA and the Rams are a really good team, but I don't like Sean McVay, and LA doesn't have a fan base to speak of. And then they're going up against Seattle, which, like, okay, fine, but I don't really care one way or the other about that one. And then on the flip side, you've basically got the Patriots who are going to walk to the Super Bowl, and I think everybody wanted like a good 10-year stretch with the Patriots not winning. And now we're back to the Patriots being a dominant force. So, I don't have a hard standpoint one way or the other with the championship games. But I do think that one of the things that would keep the 49ers from being a good team would probably be looking in the mirror. And it's a very, very small aspect of being a good team. But their lack of ever giving anyone credit and the woe is me and the we got screwed attitude has me thinking they're by far the least likable team in football. And that goes over the Cowboys for me, which, like, yeah, the Cowboys are the Cowboys and they're cringe and all that, and I'll always hate them. And, but to me, like, the Cowboys are that cute team where Dak's always going to, like, lead the league in passing. He'll be up there at least. But they're going to end up winning 7 games. And, they'll beat the Eagles, like, one time, but they'll end up losing to the Giants twice or something like that. They'll end up finding a way to win 7 games and miss the playoffs. They're not a real threat. The 49ers, they're that team that every year you hear about. And they have a decent roster. And they'll make some noise. But yet, when they actually face a better team than them, They just can't own up to it. What do you guys think out there? Is this the most unlikable team in the NFL? And if not, who is for you? Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this video sucked. Subscribing is cool. You could hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. I'm going to go now. And as always, go Birds.